G'day, my name's Brian from BsianTech. We're going to do a bit of a casual one. We're going to have a look at this new Dell XPS 13 Plus. This is the 9320. As you can see from the different look, it has been modernized by Dell. And we're going to have a look at the features as well as the temperatures and fan noise and a bit of my thoughts on these new modernized look to it. Now, as always, I will be putting timestamps along this video so you can skip to different sections that you may be interested to save you time. The weight of the X13 Plus is 1.24 kilos plus the 60 watt power adapter becomes a combined weight of 1.5 kilos that you might be carrying around with you. As for display, just like all the rest of the XPS line, it's got very narrow bezel all along all the edges. The display has an aspect ratio of 16:10, and the one I tested out was a full HD plus non-touch version, and it had a matte style finish to the display. When I tested out the display in direct sunlight, I didn't have too much issue consuming multimedia and working on documents. Measuring the color gamut coverage of the full HD non-touch display with a luminance rating of 500 nits, it resulted with 97.1% sRGB coverage, 67.8% Adobe RGB coverage, and 69.8% DCI P3 coverage. There are two speakers located on the bottom on either side of the computer. When I tested out the maximum volume of speakers, it managed to measure a peak of 88.2 decibels. I consider this pretty decently loud, and you shouldn't have any issue if you're doing a presentation outdoors or at a cafe. Now, as for the sound quality of the speakers, I have found the highs and mids was very strong, and the bass, there is a little bit of bass, but it's not on more of the high end there. And as for the acoustics, we do get 360 degrees, and as for the clarity of the speakers, this is an area that Dell can improve on. We can see Dell is trying something different with the keyboard. As you see at the top here, it is what we call touch-sensitive keys. Now, this is not something new, as we've seen this pass in the MacBooks. Apple's tried it, and this is my thoughts. I'm not a big fan of it. I have gone through the touch bar on the Macs, and truthfully, what they need to do with the Apple touch bar was to actually have what I thought is needed some sort of feedback, like even a tectonic feedback to it. And that's the same with this Dell XPS 13 Plus. I think they actually need some sort of feedback rather than pressing, because it just really feels like you're just pressing on hard surface. You really just don't have any feedback on it besides hoping that that button actually work as well too. And not only that, we've got the escape key and also the delete key up on that. So these are two what I consider major keys, because if you do a lot of typing or doing a lot of programming or any of that sort of work, those two keys are being used and they are part of the touch part. So you do take your eyes off the keyboard and then just wondering, have I actually pressed that or not? As you're just wondering on the computer as well too. So it's good to see that Apple has actually acknowledged that and actually brought back the physical buttons, as you can see from the latest MacBook Pros. And that's the same with here. I think they really need to put those back into as physical keys. As for the other keys, that's all right. You can have sort of touch, but I like to see you have some sort of touch feedback from some sort of thing there. Now, as for the keys themselves, it is nice. It does look really nice. I can tell they're having all the nice shapes of the squares, and there is practically no spacing in between. So these are what I consider large keys. And they've got quite good tactile feel to it. They've got quite a bit of a travel distance for each keys as well. And they have a very smooth surface to each keys there. So they are nicely designed and nice texture to the keys. And the trackpad is where it's all at. As you can see, we can't see the trackpad. It is completely integrated with the palm rest. What I will say about the trackpad is it pretty much takes half of the palm rest, and really, I thought I might actually have issues with it, but really, I very rarely went outside of the touchpad. I just magically, your mind really adjusts very quickly to find where the touchpad is, and if you don't, you just gotta. So it's very rare to actually go past beyond where the touchpad is. So I didn't have any issue in that sort of case. And the fact that it's like a touch feedback, because it doesn't depress down at all, you would actually don't have that issue where your palm will accidentally click on anything because of your palm while you're actually typing. So that's good to see. So the touchpad, I think, has actually done a successful job at integrating with the palm rest. I think that's been done very well. The texture of the palm rest and the trackpad is pretty much one silky smooth glass feel to the palm rest. So that's actually very nice to feel. This is a recording from the 720p webcam from the XPS 13 Plus. This is the video and audio unedited, so you can hear and see what the quality of the webcam is like. As always, I've got two touch lights currently turned on. I've got my one studio light turned on, and also the down lights in this room turned on for ambience. I'm going to turn off my one studio light off, and there are two down lights in front of me, which isn't really giving me much light on my face. So this is what I consider a dark environment. And I saw it adjust, and I think it adjusted pretty quick. So if you're in the office environment, you should get much more light than what I'm currently at. I'm going to turn my one studio back on. And of course, better quality light should give you better quality picture. Definitely love to hear what your thoughts of the video and sound of this webcam. Put a comment below. With the battery life test in PC Mark 10, it managed to get 11 hours and 22 minutes for modern office, and 1 hour and 34 minutes for gaming, and 9 hours and 11 minutes for the video playback in the Procon. As for temperatures and fan noise, when I put the computer on load, about most of the heat is located in the center of the keyboard, and that's unsurprising because that's where the processor lays underneath there. And when I took my measurements, my ambient temperature was 18 degrees Celsius and the ambient room noise was 36 decibels. So I took my base measurement when the computer was idle, and the hottest air on the keyboard measured in a maximum of 27 degrees Celsius, and the fan noise stayed at 36 decibels, so it is practically silent. And the average internal core temperature was 36 degrees Celsius. Then I put 20% load, so that's pretty much average use. So that's like office productivity work, surfing the web, streaming video, and the hottest area on the keyboard measured a maximum of 37 degrees Celsius. And as for the fan noise, hit a maximum of 37 decibels, and the average internal core temperature was 60 degrees Celsius. Then I put 50% load on the computer, and the hottest area on the keyboard measured a maximum of 39 degrees Celsius. And as for the fan noise, hit a maximum of 40 decibels, and the average internal core temperature was 69 degrees Celsius. Then I put 100% load on the computer, and the hottest area on the keyboard measured in a maximum of 44 degrees Celsius. And as for the fan noise, it spun up all the way up to 41 decibels, and the average internal core temperature was about 90 degrees Celsius. I also measured the bottom back cover of the computer, and the hottest area on the bottom back cover also measured in at 44 degrees Celsius, and of course the fan noise stayed at 41 decibels. Let's have a look at the stability performance of the processor in the XPS 139320. This particular unit is configured with an i7 1260p processor, and looking on the Intel website, it reports it has a maximum turbo boost of 4.7 gigahertz for the performance cores, and for the efficiency cores, you're looking at 3.4 gigahertz. And then as for the TDP, it's anywhere between 64 watts to about 20 watts, but its base power that it runs is around about 28 watts. Now, Windows reports it has a base clock speed of about 2.1 gigahertz. And I've got this computer connected to mains power and have the Windows power scheme set to best performance, so I'm letting the fan run at its best. And I've got this computer running on quite a lot of load for the processor, memory, and also the storage. And if that's has been running for about over 9.5 hours. And I can see that the actual speed of the processor is ranging anywhere between 1.3 to about 1.7 gigahertz. It is below the base clock speed. I am expecting quite a bit of thermal throttling because this computer is quite thin. We're going to observe the single core behavior of the i7 1260p processor in the XPS 13 Plus. I'm going to start a single core task in Citybench R23, start the clock watch, and we'll have a look at how the speed of the processor goes. And we've got the processor now at 4.2, and now it's just dropped down to about 4 gigahertz. And we're still at about 4 gigahertz, now about 3.9 gigahertz. We'll see how that's run. It is set to best performance in Windows Power Scheme. And now we're still ranging anywhere between 4 to about 3.8 gigahertz for the first 30-second mark. I would say about 3.9 gigahertz is its average. Now we'll just sort of first store the 3.7, but it's quickly flicked back up to about 3.9. And now we're starting to drop this one down to about 3.7 to about 3.8 now. And we'll see how that runs off for the next minute or so. See if it finds it's stable at 3.8, 3.7. And we're just about to finish off the single core task in Citybench R23, and it's pretty much stable at 3.8 gigahertz. I did notice that at 1 minute 45 minutes, it did drop down to quickly for about 3 gigahertz, only for about 5 seconds, then it quickly picked itself back up to about 3.8 gigahertz and stayed stable there all the way through. Here's the results of the benchmarks for the XPS 13 Plus 9320. This particular one was configured with an i7 1260p with 32 gigs of RAM and 1 terabyte SSD. Overall, it's good to see that Dell is trying something different to try and monetize and do something different with the Dell XPS 13 Plus. Now, I think that the integrated trackpad with the palm rest has been a very successful, what I'll call experiment. And as for the touch, well, I would call this a touch bar or the keys at the top here, that I'm a little bit worried about. That's not something that I opinionally like. So that's something that could improve by having the escape and delete key as physical keys. And it'll be nice to have some feedback on that touch sensitive keys. So just to be an improvement for the next revision. But else, the performance of the Dell XPS 13 Plus is pretty much like a lot of the XPS line. It's not really made for data science or long sustained work, and it is really only for light gaming. I wouldn't really do really hard gaming or very heavy gaming as the performance. It does do quite a lot of throttling. That's because of the thin chassis this is. So that seems to be like a trait of the XPS line. But else, this is absolutely great to do office productivity work and very burst speed applications, and great to travel around with, as this is a nice light and it does look pretty nice as well too. Now, I hope you find this video informative or enjoyed it. Even support my channel, smash that like button for me. And if you haven't done already, subscribe to my channel by hitting that subscribe button on the screen. I do try to upload a new video every week. And if you want to support me further, I do have membership as well by clicking that join button right next to the subscribe button. And as always, imperfections in life makes it beautiful and interesting. And I'll see you in the next video.